We're live.
Live.
Live check. Action. What's up, everybody? I'm Isaac Fox. This is...
Josh Davis.
We're from Little Bear Coffee, and we are going to do a live stream today for the Renegade Craft Virtual Fair. It's the first virtual fair ever. They're doing a cool thing of adapting to the current circumstances and trying to support cool local vendors from all over the country. So we really appreciate that from them, and glad to be a part of this. So we're going to be coming at you with a bunch of different cool, fun tutorials, everywhere from the V60 to the Aeropress to espresso to an Irish coffee for you booze drinkers.
Woo!
And then at the end of it, we're going to talk about why specialty coffee is important and why we care so much about it and why we even take the time to learn how to brew like this. And hopefully at the end of this, you guys can learn how to make a delicious cup of coffee at home. We've got links in our video comments, or description for our online store. This weekend, it's 20% off all of our bagged coffee if you use the code Renegade, and we're going to be donating some of our coffee too to some healthcare workers for all the awesome service they're doing right now. And then we also have a bunch of the equipment you'll be seeing in this video, links to Amazon if you guys want to buy some of that so you can brew at home. So
yeah, and just to give you a little bit more info on who we are Little Bear Coffee from Albuquerque, New Mexico. We love Albuquerque, we love New Mexico, we love repping where we're from. And yeah, I hope that if you guys are ever traveling through, you definitely come stop to see us or order a bag online or anything like that. Our whole mission at Little Bear is to love people use coffee. So we try to take a very person-focused approach to brewing coffee. And of course, we're going to brew the best coffee we can because that's what we're in the business of doing. But also we want to make you feel seen and valued and loved and taken care of and a part of the family. So we hope you feel that in everything we're doing today. And yeah, that's just like our approach we try to take and try to have a lot of fun as well. We don't want to take ourselves too seriously. So yeah.
Yeah, speaking of which, throughout this, if you have any questions or comments or whatever, please throw them in the chat so we can have this be more interactive. We miss hanging out with everybody, so as much as we can virtually, we're hyped to do so. So first up, we have an Aeropress tutorial from the one and only Isaiah Jaramillo. He's coming in at what, 5'8"?
5'8", 80 pounds.
80 pounds, super flexible,
5'9".
lean, 5'9".
Oh, 5'9".
Almost 5'10".
Almost 5'10".
Oh!
It's a 5'9.5".
5'10" with the Cortez.
120, 145 pounds.
He's wearing some brand new shoes today, so you know he's feeling good. You're gonna get the best Isaiah possible.
All right, everybody.
So,
Welcome,
without further ado,
Isaiah.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Glad to be here. New shoes for proof. I'm feeling my best today. I'm ready to teach you guys how to make the best coffee. Aeropress, you may have one, you may have seen one, your friend may have one, your enemy may have one. Either way, they're pretty affordable for home brewing. They require the least amount of equipment, so I'm going to be doing it on scale, but if you don't happen to have a scale, there's cool little volumetric measurements on the Aeropress that you could totally use if you don't have one. It's not really eyeballing if it's volumetric. It's just going to be a little bit less precise than a scale. But that's what's cool. You could take it camping, you could take it hiking. Really durable. You know the Uncle Rico thing in Napoleon Dynamite when they run over the Tupperware? I think this could hold up to being run over by a truck. Anyway, the Aeropress is made up of 3 parts. So you got the base, you got the plunger, and then you got the basket. The basket holds your filter. We use 2 paper filters, but you can also use metal mesh filters. There's cloth filters if you're trying to be, conserve a little bit. We're all for that as well. You can still make good coffee. Anytime you use a paper filter, or at least most of the time, you're going to filter out a good amount more than you would with a metal mesh filter. So even if you haven't seen an Aeropress or if you don't have an Aeropress, that's okay. you may have seen or heard or used a French press. That's like a, an old school way of brewing coffee, but it's tried and true for a lot of people, still used today. So it's in like the category of immersion brewing. So what immersion method brewing is essentially you're steeping coffee for a set time, and then as soon as you want the water to break contact with the coffee, you can stop it whenever you choose. And we'll go over times, recipes, quantities, all that stuff. But that differs from like a pour over method, which we'll also show you guys, in that you have a little less control for a pour over method, because your grind is essentially what's going to dictate how long it takes for that water to pass through it. So these guys can be a little more forgiving than a pour over. So if you're someone asked yesterday like what the best maybe entry level home brewing would be if you're trying to do like manual brewing, and I kind of said the Aeropress. You could do any of them, anyone can learn them, but the Aeropress is going to be a little more forgiving if you change your quantities or your ratios a little bit. It can just be a little bit easier to dig your toes into at first, but let's get started. So we're gonna have 17 grams of ground coffee. Some of y'all get your coffee ground by baristas when you buy them. Some of y'all have grinders at home. We do recommend a burr grinder if that's a possibility for you. They are generally better, much more consistent than a blade grinder that usually just chops it up. So the consistency that we're going to be using for this Aeropress would be considered fine, which sounds a little vague, but if you have coarse over here and fine over here, and then medium right in the middle, we're going to be on closer to the fine end, past the medium end, but there's a little variation. So if we had a coarser grind, we'd steep the coffee for longer. If we'd have a finer grind, we'd steep it for a less amount of time. So a little finer than a pour over, which a pour over is generally ground to the consistency of like a table salt. So maybe a couple notches down on your grinder. At any rate, we use the inverted method of brewing an Aeropress. So some people will brew it straight on top with the coffee, carafe, like so. Put the coffee and pour water. That's a standard way of brewing an Aeropress. Also perfectly good. You do lose a little bit of water if you brew that way, because some water will start to leak in there. That's kind of why we prefer the inverted way. That's going to be plunger up. And then the base on top of it, we'll save this basket and filter for the end. On the measurements of the Aeropress, there's a little 4. That's kind of where you want to start your plunger. We're going to put it on our scale right quick. Again, if you don't have one, that's totally okay. We have our water heated up, 198 degrees. You want to get purified water if that's available to you. If you're camping or whatever, usually you bring some sort of bottled water, or you have water tap or something like that. But stovetop kettles work. We have this electric gooseneck kettle, which looks beautiful. But you also don't absolutely need this gooseneck right here for the Aeropress. It's a little more helpful for V60 or Kalita or other pour over methods, because you control the water a bit better. So if you just have like a standard kettle that you heat water on, it's going to be fine. But if you have a gooseneck, it's going to help you out a little bit. So we're going to wet our paper filter. If you have a paper filter, just rinse it off, get those fibers off. It will taste papery if you just brew right into a dry filter. So another quick thing, we tared this scale, so the scale reads 0 right now. We're going to make sure that 17 grams gets into the actual Aeropress. So for example, if you weigh out 17 grams, you could find that you lost some. Like you pour all your coffee in and it's only 15 grams. Sometimes that happens in grinders, so you can over measure by like maybe a gram or 2, just to make sure that you're getting the correct ratio. The reason we even use these numbers is just so we could repeat something that's good, right? So you could eyeball a bunch of different ways, get a bunch of different results, some of them good, some of them not so good. But when you're consistent, you can get that, repeat result of a really good cup. And that's why we stick to the same recipes at Little Bear. We've also developed them and kind of reassessed them. So we're going to start off with the bloom which is twice the weight of dry coffee. So it's going to be like 35 grams of water. Or, again, if you don't have a scale, just enough to cover the dry coffee. Perfect. We're right at 35. We're going to start a timer. If you don't have a timer on your scale, you could use your phone, or you could even count in your head. But we're going to bloom it for 30 seconds, which just means that you're releasing the gases that are stored up from the roasting process. So you'll see bubbles start to release those gases as soon as you start to wet it. I gave it a little gentle stir with the Aeropress paddle. You can use a spoon. Basically, you can't always see it, but the water doesn't always get all the way through all those grounds, so it needs a little assistance. Don't be too aggressive, but don't be afraid to be a little thorough with it, just to make sure everything's nice and saturated. So we're going to be pouring to 220 grams of water now. Again, if you don't have a scale, it's going to be just right at this lip, this like where the hexagon starts. And right when we hit a minute and 15 seconds, I'm going to begin plunging. I'm going to lock my basket into place. Make sure it's nice and tight. I've made the mistake of not putting it on fully, and it is not fun. So you could actually just do this and 180 the whole thing, or if you're careful, you can just put it right on top like that. We're going to do like a slow plunge, so that should last like 30 to 45 seconds. You don't want to force it through, because you can force some of those like fines through, which makes your coffee a little less clean, a little muddy, so to speak. So ideally, we're going to try and end on the time of like between 1:45 and 2 minutes. When you start to hear like a hissing sound, that means it hits the air and it's not extracting anymore, so that's when you're going to stop. So we just heard it now. Another cool thing is easy cleanup with these guys. You just take that basket off, and then you plunge the coffee like there's a little puck in there, and then you can just rinse it off, and it's clean, and you can literally just brew another cup right on top of that if you want, or it's good to use for next time. So another thing to keep in mind, as you can see, it's about like 8 ounces, so not a ton of coffee. So for you venti people out there, this might not do everything you want it to, but there's also recipes. So for example, if we had a really concentrated recipe, maybe instead of using 17 grams of coffee, we use like 28 grams of coffee. We can make a really concentrated small cup of coffee and dilute it afterwards to make a larger cup of coffee. That's an option for you. We're gonna have the recipe for you guys to download if you missed any of it, or if you're like just getting in now. But the way that this Aeropress recipe is dialed in is to be like a really balanced, pretty clean, straightforward cup with a good body, but not too much body that it kind of drowns out the flavor clarity. So I'm gonna see if we're successful at that. I think we will be. Let's see. Yeah, it's awesome. And it's our new coffee, actually, our Costa Rica. We're going to have it on our website. And if you use code Renegade, we're doing online orders. This coffee I'm really excited about. It's a newer batch. It has like a really tea-like, kind of silky, light body to it, light mouthfeel. It's kind of floral. It's pretty subtle. So it's not one of those coffees that's going to like punch you in the face, but it has like a really cool, subtle complexity, which is kind of brought out by like cleaner, lighter recipes. So this ratio is about a 1:12 ratio. So it's a little strong for a lot of brewing methods, depending on what your preference is. But you can always add more water if it's too strong, or the opposite, more coffee if it's a little too weak. But that being said, if y'all have any questions or advice for me, or if you have any experience with the Aeropress, then you just let us know. We're actually gonna get ready for a latte art throwdown between our roaster James and our cafe manager Josh. We're gonna get those lattes going right now.
Who won yesterday?
Yesterday, the winner was James. So hopefully today is redemption day for Josh. It's going to be anonymous though, so you won't be able to have your feelings attached to these lattes. So they're getting ready now. They're going to pour. I'm gonna kind of I'm gonna show you which one's which. One's gonna be A, one's gonna be B, and we're gonna have you guys vote on which one you think is more beautiful, which one you think you want to drink more.
In normal latte art competitions, what is the judge looking for?
Yeah, so if you're getting kind of critical about the latte art, if you kind of want to like know what people are even looking at, I know a lot of people sometimes just see the same thing. Basically, what you're looking at is milk texture. It's really the like fundamentals of milk-based drinks is the texture and consistency. It should be kind of glossy. You shouldn't see any visible bubbles. Like for the design itself, we're grading kind of on complexity or creativity. So if there's something that you've never seen before, then that counts for it. If there's like a few more layers or it seems a little more difficult, then you could err on the side of complexity. And then you're also looking at contrast. So white foam on dark foam. You don't want it to like blend in. So if the latte is like a really light tan, you start to lose the shape of it. So you're kind of grading on like the difference between the design and then the exterior of the latte. So keep that in mind when you guys vote. I'm gonna hold you all accountable. But we're pulling the shots. James and Josh are steaming their milk now. There's basically three primary designs in latte art. So you have a rosetta, which is maybe the most common to some extent. At least it's the most like pictured kind of latte art. There's also a tulip, which is similar to a rosetta, but instead of one single pullback, you have several layers that are separated out. And then you have like a swan. A swan is supposed to look at least remotely like an actual swan. Has a neck and a face. So those are the three big ones. You have a lot of variations within those. So you have, you have different kinds of hearts, which are essentially like a variation of a tulip. You have something that's called like a slowzetta, which is like a rosetta, but you're pouring it quite a bit slower. So there's less layers. Looks like they're coming to pour now.
Here comes the competitor.
But y'all can't look at the lattes or else you'll get your emotions too tied up. So we're going to pour the lattes. They're going to stay anonymous and we're going to vote on them. A and B. Get those A's and B's ready. Okay, so we got latte A. We got two tulips, right? These are actually, if you can believe it, the same design with slight variation. So you have some more like in-depth layers over here. You have like a really full-bodied one over here. So A's for this latte, if you think this latte is better, if it invokes an emotional response, makes you feel good, or B, if you'd rather drink latte B, which one looks more appealing for you?
Cast your votes now.
Go ahead and vote in the chat.
We got two A's.
Two A's. Two
One
A's.
B.
One B.
Two B's.
Two B's. Ooh.
Neck and neck, neck and neck. Also Gabe Spinello, I like the B's. One more B.
Another B.
One A.
One A. Ooh.
Another B.
A B. Shoot, this is close.
B.
Oh shit.
B. Another B.
Oh, B. If you want to save latte A,
One
speak
more A.
now or forever.
Two A's.
We're doing
Two
it
E?
10 more seconds.
Okay.
It's literally,
10.
it's exactly tied. We need one
Nine.
more vote.
B's in the lead, I think, by one.
Oh, is it? Well, we just got two
7,
more A's.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Is it a tie? Or is it
A took it with 1 extra.
A? Oh, that was close. You guys made that very interesting. Thank you. All right. Sick. So next up, I'm going to get rid of these lattes. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to the stage Josh Davis.
Woo!
Woo!
Thank you, bro. More hot water. We need more hot water?
I think so.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're right. Cool. Give me just 1 sec. We're gonna get some more hot water over here, and then we'll get some more brewing going.
Josh, what album has been on repeat for you for the fans?
What album has been on repeat?
Yeah, what's getting you through these times, Josh?
Man, I don't know if this is a specific album. Song? No, I was disappointed by that Travis Scott Kid Cudi track they dropped. Thought that was gonna be a lot better.
What about DaBaby's 20th album this year? Did you like that?
Sounds exactly like everything DaBaby's ever put out, so couldn't want anything different.
Couldn't expect anything more.
Thanks, dude. Go. Everybody give it up for Isaiah.
You ever seen a fellow kettle into another fellow kettle?
That's luxury, baby.
That's called fourth wave. Sweet. So while that gets going, I will just talk a little bit about V60. That's what we're going to be brewing right now. V60 is a pour-over method. So basically what that is we're going to pour the water into this device here. It's going to have our coffee. It's going to get filtered through this paper filter, and then it's going to go into this carafe here, and then we will drink the delicious coffee. V60 is kind of one of our favorite ways to brew coffee. Once a way we're super partial to. It's a kind of like our go-to, our benchmark. When we're tasting coffees, we still brew V60 a lot just to get a flavor profile on them. It's super simple. Yeah, and it's one of the most popular ways to brew coffee and specialty coffee across the country. It's super affordable. This one's one of the metal ones, but you can get one of the like plastic V60s from Hario or from some other place for like just a pinch over $10. So it's super approachable. Paper filters are super easy to get. So yeah, it's one of our favorite ways. So we get some hot water now. Cool. What we're going to be brewing today is going to be our Kenya. It's this bag here. It's a new coffee. It's a wash process. Tasting notes are sweet berries, citrus, and caramel. Yeah, so let's brew some coffee. So what I am going to do to start off is I'm going to put some hot water on the paper filter. And this is going to be rinsing the filter, taking any possibly papery taste out of there. And it's also going to be doing a little bit of preheating on my vessel. Heat is super important. We want to brew hot coffee. We want to control temperature and all that stuff. So that is rinsed. We've dumped out that water that was in our carafe. Now I'm going to add 21 grams of coffee. We're going for a coarse sea salt grind size here. So not super fine like dust, but not super coarse like a French press. You don't want to see any boulders or super big chunks. You want it to be like kind of in the middle. Yeah, just like a coarse sea salt basically. And yeah, so we got 21 grams in. What I'm going to do first is do a 75 gram bloom. And what the bloom does is degas the coffee, brings out a little bit more sweetness. And so yeah, so let's do that. I'm going to pour 75 grams. After I've poured my 75 grams, I'm gonna grab a little spoon and gently stir and kind of agitate the coffee. Basically what that does is it's going to make sure everything's evenly saturated, all the coffee's wet, there's not any dry pockets in there. You're gonna see a little bit of bubbles and air kind of rising up out of the coffee bed. That is the degassing. If your coffee's super fresh, you might see quite a bit more of that. If you're brewing coffee that's several months old, you may not get too much bubbles or blooming happening. So on this second pour, I'm doing a center pour, just staying right in the middle, nice and slow, and we're pouring up to 150 grams, so 75 gram bloom, 150 grams now. And now at a minute, I'm gonna stay right in the center and pour up to 220. I'm taking about 10 to 15 seconds to pour each amount of water. You don't want to rush it. And now at a minute and 30 seconds, I'm going to be doing the final pour. So I'm going to deviate from that central pour and do a little bit of concentric circles. Basically aiming for the dark spots in the coffee bed. Making sure everything is off the side of the filter and everything is submerged. And then after that's done, I'm going to give this a little swirl and tap. And basically what that's going to do is make sure all of the coffee is covered in the slurry. All of it's getting extracted. A huge part of really good tasting pour over coffee is even extraction. If your coffee is not being evenly extracted, it's going to taste a little wacky, a little all over the place. You're going to have some parts that are really bitter, some that are under extracted, or a mix of that whole gamut, which we don't want. So that's why we use a burr grinder, because it's more evenly ground, which leads to more even extraction. Those whirly blade grinders, those kind of give you a whole different scope between like sand like consistency to a lot more coarse, and so that's going to cause to a little bit more uneven extraction. So yeah, we're aiming for all of our water is now drained out. We're at 6 seconds under 3 minutes, so that's right where we want to be for this recipe. What we want to see, you probably won't be able to see too much details, but you want to see a flat bed, and you don't want to see too much coffee around the edge of the V60. Basically, you want all of the coffee to have been extracted in this bottom part. Cool. So we can compost this, get this out of the way, toss that to the side, and we've got a beautiful cup of Kenya. I haven't had too much coffee today, so I'm actually super excited to drink this. I know there was a lot of detail I just threw at you guys for that tutorial, but there is a link on the stream on the show notes if you're on YouTube, and it's on our website if you're on Instagram. But there is a brew guide. We have a few videos that walk you through the whole thing that you can pause and rewind and do all that stuff. But then we also have a brew guide that's a sheet that has all of those in points, and you can kind of like talk through that and yeah, take your time reading that. If you have any questions, send them our way. Yeah, that is our standard V60 recipe when we're brewing in the cafes day in and day out. So yeah.
Blake wants to know clockwise or counterclockwise.
Counter.
Counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise.
Final answer.
If you brew clockwise, sometimes you'll just unlock the fourth dimension,
If
and
you're
your
in
coffee will
Australia,
just
do you
turn
go the
to
other way?
folders. If you're in Australia, yeah, you can try to go clockwise, but it switches back, it reverses back.
Gotcha.
Sweet.
Round 2.
So, yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. James and I are gonna do round 2 of the Latte Art Throwdown. If you guys don't vote for me, I'm gonna purposely brew all of your coffee very terribly next time you guys come in.
It's pretty rude. Hi, Thea.
What's up,
Isaiah.
everyone? What's up?
Thea, hi.
Hi, Thea. What's up? Shout out to Seattle.
What's your favorite shop in Seattle?
Oh, shoot. You know, there's some controversial shops in Seattle. But I can't say them. Can't name drop. I can't give them any more publicity. But, shoot. Oh. Our time in Seattle was so short-lived. We went to one of the controversial shops. Trying to think where else. Where else did we go?
We went to the Starbucks Reserve Roaster.
Oh, no.
We went to...
My favorite coffee shop was that really cool fish market that was by the beach.
That room bar, I think, was our favorite
I'm sorry, we didn't
shop.
get to go to that many coffee shops when we were there. But I do love Seattle, and the best sushi I've ever had in my entire life
that
was in
insane.
Seattle. It was a lobster or crab roll.
I think it was a crab.
Crab.
And it was rolled up like a burrito.
It was... I would say that New Mexico has the best food, hands down. I'll put our food up against any of y'all's food. But we don't have the best seafood, straight up. We're pretty far from the water, as you can imagine. You know, there's some, like, rainbow trout, freshwater trout, but that's really the extent of it. That crab takes some time to get here. It's not the same. We got the competitors coming up now. Round 2 of this pour. This is your opportunity to redeem yourself, Josh.
Ben says seafood is garbage.
I know Ben believes that, and I ardently disagree with him. Seafood is like, there's not enough fish in our diet, I believe. I think we all need some more fish, except if you're vegetarian. But shout out to all the pescatarians. Don't show them which one's which. Alright, remember, we got consistency, we got symmetry, we got contrast, creativity. Did they go above and beyond? I know one of them did.
We got
Did
empathy.
they do too much?
We got pity.
Did they do too much? Alright. Here we go. We got latte A. If you're looking at latte A and you just want to slurp that latte down over latte B, if these were both in front of you, which one would you drink first? Which one makes you want to paint a beautiful picture? Which one makes you want to compose beautiful music? That's really at the core of this. Which one inspires you? Which one inspires you?
We got 1B.
We got 1B. We got one for B.
We
Send
got
in those
a
votes.
wave from Randy Bone.
We got a B
2
on
B's, 3 B's,
another B over here.
Oh, God.
6 B's.
6
7 B's.
Jesus.
6, 7.
Slow down. There's too many B's.
Another B, 8 B's.
Oh,
B.
okay.
9 B's,
Okay,
10
okay.
B's.
Stop!
11 B's.
He's already dead.
He's already dead. 12 B's.
Damn.
12 B's.
Okay, so, you know, unless you got, like, a loyalist group for 12, I need the...
1A.
I need
Because it's an A.
I need the... Oh, we got,
Oh, we got an A. We
I
got
think
an
it
A.
counts as 10 votes.
Yeah, we did say that before, so it's 10 to 12
Sarah
right
says A is a little too roostery for her
now. A
liking.
little
Oh.
too roostery. Ooh.
Explain what this was going for.
So, your guess is as good as mine.
Some art can't be explained.
Sometimes when you create art, you have this visceral reaction as an artiste, and you just feel a wave of inspiration that other people might not understand, and you just have to be okay with that. So I think that's my answer for A.
Some art isn't understood, some art is just felt.
Yeah.
Sarah
so-
said it looks like the inspiration was chicken run.
Well, you'll never know. You can't get into the mind of an artist. They're always going to be an enigma. So the clear winner is Latte B, which belongs to Roaster James, the standing champion. So round 3 is gonna be Isaiah and James.
Ooh.
James won 2 days in a row now.
Wait, we gotta shout out Christian Puckett.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh.
Now we're gonna
tough.
slurp.
Now.
All right.
Are you up, Zay?
It's just we do ice. All right.
You need to grind your coffee.
Yes.
20.
We're back. So, if you're like, I'm seeing all this coffee, but I'm looking outside and it's too dang hot. Shout out to all the Phoenix people out there. Shout out to all the, I don't know, where else is hot? Louisiana, Florida. Don't go to the beach if you're in Florida though, on the real. Anyway, we're gonna be making some iced coffee. So if you have a V60 or any other pour over method would honestly be okay. The filtration is gonna be a little bit different, but we're gonna use the V60 again, and we're gonna make it icy this time, so you can be nice and refreshed. A lot of times when you have like an iced coffee and you're doing like a flash brew is kind of what this is. So we're gonna end up filling our carafe with ice. So you can measure out your ice. I know not everyone has ice machines. Can't get that good ice all the time. So you can just bust out one of those ice trays and you're good to go. Or if you do have a good, I've seen those things at World Market where there's like little shapes of ice. I'd be super down if you use that for an ice V60. If you have a special shape ice tray and you make an ice V60, send it to us and we'll send you a gift card. On my word. On my good word. So send us a picture of your special ice. Anyway, it waters it down, as you can imagine, since we're still brewing with hot water. So this isn't a cold brew. So cold brew is like brewed with cold water, and it steeps for like, it depends on how much coffee you're using. We make big batches of cold brew. That takes like a full 20 hours. But we don't have that kind of time. We're gonna make a flash brew today. Generally, for my iced coffee likings, I try and choose coffees that are like fruit forward, juicy, have like a good amount of complexity. Like, I know a lot of people really enjoy the sweeter, more straightforward, lower acidity coffees, but I really think that for an iced coffee, it tastes really, really refreshing. If you have something that's like reminiscent of something like juicy, honestly, you'll thank me. If you find like a good fruit forward coffee from your local roaster, use that word for extra bonus points, by the way. Fruit forward. We're gonna rinse the filter like we did all those other times. And this is gonna be probably the easiest one we do yet, because there's really only two pours that we're doing. As you can imagine, we're doing much more coffee, so we weighed out 28 grams. Josh's recipe for a hot cup was 21. So we're compensating for that melted ice, which translates to additional water when you're doing a pour over. Like I said, if you're using hot water. So as with anything, we're gonna tare it, make sure we do got the right amount in here. There we go. And I'm going for 28. It's gonna be nice, easy, and refreshing. Josh, what coffee is this?
That is the honey processed Peru.
Honey processed Peru. Ooh, packing the good stuff today. So, same thing Josh said, just to reiterate, make sure this is nice and flat and even. If you pour it and stuck to the sides, it can be a little goofy. So, nice and flat. Bloom. So, 28 times 2, 56, right? 56.
Wow.
So, about 56, anywhere between 50 and 60. Like I said, with the bloom, the important part is to make sure that all of those grounds are really well saturated. Sometimes people get a little too caught up in like specifically this amount, which I do get, but at the same time, you can give yourself a little wiggle room. Give it a little stir. So right at 30 seconds, we're actually just going to do a single pour. We're going to pour it to 220, and it sounds like a really concentrated coffee because it is, but the ice is going to dilute it, and then Also, you have to consider when you're drinking it, unless you're just gonna like kill it right away, the ice is gonna continue to melt. So ideally, a good recipe is gonna like be able to taste good through all of that process, even if more of the ice melts while you're drinking it. So we're just doing one continuous pour to 220. And since we are using more coffee, we can expect that the draining is going to take actually a little bit longer than it would for Josh's, because now the water is going through 7 more grams of coffee. So if it ends closer to like 3 minutes, 15 seconds or so, that's totally reasonable. That's about what we want. If it's too long, like if it's like 4 minutes, that might be a little too slow. Since we are using a lot more coffee and less water, you're actually a lot more likely to get the grounds stuck to the side of the filter. So just keep an eye out on that. You don't want too many grounds stuck to the side. We're almost done draining here. Usually that last stretch takes a little bit longer because you got all of the grounds kind of compact together. We're just about done. Oh yeah, nice, flat, even, if you can see it. So could you give me a glass, Josh?
Yeah.
Just so you all can see how beautiful this is. Because it looks refreshing too. When you know, you know. You'll see. And can you put a little bit more ice in it? Because if you'll notice, most of the ice does melt in the process often. And if you want like a real chilled coffee, you can add just a little more ice to the cup you're pouring into. You don't necessarily have to though. Ooh. And we don't got no straws. Anti-straw gang. Sick. It really is, it's good. So as the ice melts, you can kind of expect the coffee to open up a little bit most of the time, as long as it doesn't dilute it too much. So if you add water to, even something like whiskey, it starts to open up the flavors. You can taste them a little more clearly. And that's kind of the philosophy when you're making like a flash brew. You want those like flavors to open up as it goes. Ideally, it should go like get even better as you're drinking it. So the last few drinks should honestly be the best drinks. I drink this and it's delicious. It's a little concentrated for my taste, but as that ice starts to melt, as I sip on it a little, then it becomes really fruit forward, bright, aromatic, all the good stuff. And I could enjoy it on a summer day. My car doesn't have an AC, so I can't get in there with a hot coffee, you know what I'm saying?
We have a question. How much ice did you start brewing with?
So we use these, they're like a full 16-ounce craft, and these are 16-ounce cups. And times we'll actually just fill up the whole 16-ounce cup with ice. If you measure out our ice, I think it's actually around also like 200 grams of ice, give or take. But like I said, we fill up 16-ounce cups of ice. So for our ice, since we have like consistent sizes and stuff, we'll just fill up our 16 ounces, and that yields pretty consistent results. So I would recommend just finding like a equivalent size glass and filling that bad boy up with ice. So that's my answer to that. But yeah, if you have any more questions, I'm gonna go head to head with James, see if I can redeem cafe manager boys. Wish me luck.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate you. Again, if there's any questions you have at any point, we love answering questions. We love helping you guys out. We never want coffee to be something that seems weird or hard to grasp or too cool for you or any of that. We're definitely not all about any of that stuff. We want it to be something fun and approachable. So yeah, we're actually gonna do another 2 of 3 with Isaiah versus James in the latte art throwdown. So everybody get ready for that. James is like Bowser, and he's kind of like the final boss. And so you don't always beat the final boss. Sometimes you gotta try a few times.
Or Luigi?
Your choice, dude.
No, it's not my choice.
Okay, I'm Luigi. I'm Luigi, and maybe that's the problem. We should have just went for Mario straight ahead.
I actually think Isaiah's Luigi if I had to pick one.
Oh, okay. Well, since everyone's just saying their
Let's have a
opinions
vote
on
on the chat.
vote on the chat. Am I Mario or am I Luigi? Is Isaiah Mario or is Isaiah Luigi?
Very relevant.
Or is Isaiah Bowser
and give
James?
reasoning. You have to
Yeah, give us your thesis on it as well. Yeah.
AKA.
Is there any? We planned for Ice V60 Aeropress. Is there any other brew tutorial that you guys would like? We don't have any French presses around, but if you guys are dying for something, we can try to see if we can make something work for you. We do have a really almost too funny of a Chemex tutorial that just dropped. That is on our website as well. But yeah, Isaiah, we saved up all of our hard-earned cash from blood, sweat, and tears in the cafe and sent Isaiah into space. It was an interstellar experience. He brewed in zero gravity. He completed the best extraction I think ever. But yeah, no, we just have a funny space Chemex video that I hope you guys like.
Link in bio.
Link in the bio. Check that out.
Also, the only response we have is that Isaiah is actually Princess Peach.
Oh. Okay.
I accept.
So we got the boys coming over. They are doing round 1 of 3 for this second latte art throwdown. Ooh. This is gonna be a good match, I'm telling you guys. I'm really excited for this.
Can't see who this is.
Don't look, don't peek. Sweet. So we've got two stunning lattes right here. And I commend Isaiah because he's not down here pouring into these cups off. Well, I guess James isn't either. They both aren't pouring in these cups off. So basically on B side over here, we have a pretty awesome tulip. We got a little bit of a base wiggle and then some stacks going into that. And then we've got a pretty stunning swan over here on side A. Both are really, really well done. Great pours. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a vote. So this is going to be A. Swan is A. Tulip is B. We're looking for fullness. We're looking for contrast. We're looking for creativity, how hard a pour is. And then also you got to just go aesthetic too. What looks good to you? What are you vibing with? So we got A and B. Throw your votes into the chat right now.
5 A's, 6 A's,
Any B's?
7 A's, 8 A's.
Dang, y'all sleeping on the B, but I see you.
Okay, just hold on.
One B, we got a B.
Alright. So usually
Another
in
B.
Swan, you want it to be nice and
Another
lean
B.
and structured.
1 A.
This one
Another
is
A.
in a boat, but also
Another A.
a swan. It's like swans can swim
Another
on their
A.
own, James. Oh!
This one's just like
I vote B. One more B. Alright guys, cast your votes now.
there doesn't have to be any
Last
kitty
chance.
votes, but I do see what Isaiah's saying there.
Alright
Just
everybody.
Wait, there can be pity votes. I just want to make that
Do we
clear.
need to disqualify
If
these
you
gentlemen from the
feel-
competition?
If you feel bad for me, vote for B.
I'm sorry to say guys, A was a landslide.
Wow. Okay.
Incredible.
Awesome. So I'm gonna get these out of the way. We are gonna do a Irish coffee tutorial right now. So we love all drinks, all craft beverages. We
I
love
want
coffee.
you to know I'm a little disappointed in you guys. Think about what you've done.
Just gotta grab one.
Oh, you're good. So, we're no discriminator of beautiful beverages over here. We like coffee in the morning. We like Irish coffee in the morning on some days. So yeah, Isaac, one of the owners, is going to be making a super awesome Irish coffee and teaching you guys how to wow your friends. If you, when quarantine's over and you're going to have a few friends over, you want to wow them with a nice boozy little breakfast cocktail or a nightcap, whatever you choose. This is going to be your recipe. Cool. So without further ado, Isaac Fox.
What's up, everybody? So, I think in quarantine, from what I've heard, is coffee has been a very important thing to keep us all motivated and going and trying to work on stuff. But I think even more importantly is been alcohol for most of us, not gonna lie. So that's why we're gonna go over this tutorial, is to kind of give something fun you guys can have whenever you need a little pick-me-up, whether that's a brunch cocktail, an after-dessert cocktail, any time of day. Irish coffee is gonna be one of your go-tos because it's delicious. For this tutorial, you're gonna need a couple different things. You're gonna need a cool mug. Mine actually says Irish coffee on it because my girlfriend finds really cool things at thrift stores. You're gonna need heavy cream, simple syrup, Irish whiskey, and a coffee of your choice. So to get started, let's kind of go over what the Irish coffee is. So it's a blend of all of these different things, but it is a hot beverage, which is an important thing to distinct because you got to be kind of careful with hot cocktails because alcohol's perception is a little more intense with hot drinks. But we're going to take care of that in a couple ways. And the other thing you got to be careful of is if you're mixing with a hot beverage, the aroma of alcohol is a little volatile because it is actually evaporating as you mix the drink. So you're going to want to come up with something to fix that, which the Irish coffee has done. So we'll just dive right into it, get you guys going. So you're going to start with your mug. We're going to build this into this glass. So you're not going to have to build something separate and then pour it in like a lot of cocktails. We're going to build it straight in here. So we're going to start by measuring out our whiskey. For the Irish coffee, the reason it's called the Irish coffee is because you need to use Irish whiskey for it. But if you don't have that at home, I know this is a unique occasion and a lot of liquor stores are closed too. It's okay to use another whiskey. I'll let it slide this time. But today we're going to be using Powers, which is a really, really tasty Irish whiskey because it has like a really nice honey flavor to it, which I think goes perfectly alongside coffee, the simple syrup and the heavy cream and all that stuff. Some other good Irish coffee or Irish whiskey brands would be Jameson, Bushmills, Redbreast. If you feel a little bougie, you can get some really fancy Redbreast whiskey. So any sort of Irish whiskey will work. So we're going to start out with this. You're going to do 1.5 ounces of Irish whiskey. I'm going to use a jigger today, which is a measurement tool for cocktails. So it has a small and bigger bell side to measure out ingredients, and that'll have little lines inside. That'll give you like 1/2 ounce, 7/5 of an ounce, full ounce, 1.5 ounce, and 2 ounces. These are super, super helpful if you're ever wanting to do cocktails and stuff at home. But if you also just have a normal measuring glass, that's totally fine. So start with 1.5 ounces of your Irish whiskey. Next up, we're going to throw in some simple syrup. And simple syrup is super easy to make. The way we like to do it here at Little Bear and at our cocktail bar is we take just a normal scale, which, hopefully you have a scale in your kitchen at home, and you just put something on it and you just measure out equal weight of sugar to water because you're going to want it to be a 1-to-1 ratio. And then our thing that we think is the easiest is just to blend it all together in a blender. You can also do it on a stovetop. Just be careful when you're doing it on the stovetop not to go too long. You're just going to want to mix it until it becomes transparent, and then that's the perfect time. So we're going to add 7/5 of an ounce, 0.75 of simple syrup. And again, make sure that's a 1-to-1 ratio or it's going to be really overly sweet or really underly sweet, and you want to make sure to get that just right because in this cocktail, like I said, when it's hot, the perception of alcohol just tastes really sharp and intense, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it doesn't mean you're going to want to counteract it with a simple syrup. And a lot of cocktails usually use 2 ounces of your spirit as well, but in this case we're using 1.5 ounces because, again, that perception, you need to kind of dial it back a little bit. Also, this mug is an 8-ounce mug, which is ideal for this recipe that we're providing currently, but you can always change this based on the size of your glass. You're just going to want to measure it out first, just so you know what you're working towards. So lastly, we're going to put in our coffee. We freshly brewed the All Sick blend, which is our staple blend. It's super well-rounded, good coffee for this, so it has, it's very adaptable to flavors, so it'll taste really good with a lot of different things. So for our instance of all the coffees we have right now, this is definitely our coffee of choice. So you're gonna add 4 ounces of coffee. And this is the one instance where a jigger isn't super helpful because it's metal and really hot and it'll burn your fingers. Don't forget too, when you're making this, to make sure to stir to incorporate at this point, because if you don't, sometimes all the flavors don't mend really well, which is important. The other thing to keep in mind, when you brew your coffee, any of the tutorials we've given so far, the V60, the Aeropress, a Chemex would be great, drip coffee machine, whatever you guys have is totally fine. Make sure it's warm and fresh, because if you're going to start it with lukewarm coffee, I'll show you why in a minute, but when you put the cream head on top of it, if you don't have the heat underneath, it's just not going to taste quite right. So make sure this is nice and hot. So now that this is all mixed up, the next step is to get the heavy cream to be a little more firm than it currently is. So you're not going to want to just pour heavy cream straight out the bottle, or it'll mend in with, like it'll dissolve into the coffee, which is a problem because then it'll make the entire drink lukewarm as opposed to the way we're going to do it, which I'm going to show you. But the idea is you're going to want it to sit right on top, so that way you can taste the cold cream with the hot coffee at the exact same time. So what I'm going to do is take my home strainer, and I'm going to pull off this coil, and then I'm going to put it into a Boston shaker tin. That way when I shake it, it kind of like whisks it for me. However, if you're at home and you just have a bowl and a whisk, that's totally fine. You're just going to want to whisk it until there's what's called soft peaks. So it's a little firm to where it's not watery, but it's also not super hard because you want it to still be drinkable. So this is a great way to do it if you have a Boston shaker and a coil. If not, a protein shaker bottle with a little ball inside of it does the exact same trick. And then you're going to want at least 2 ounces of heavy cream. I always put a little more because when you shake it up, it gets kind of stuck to the sides, and you want to make sure you fill it all the way to the top. So you're going to pour your heavy cream in. And also, if you want to add in some fun flavors, now is a perfect time. You can kind of mess around with the cream. You can put some coconut cream in there. You can put some simple syrup in here, some chocolate powder, all sorts of different stuff, just to kind of give it your own unique flair based on what you have at home. But for us, we're just going to go with the classic recipe and just do straight up cream. If you're using a shaker tin, make sure to keep it nice and tight or you'll get cream everywhere. And we're going to shake it for about 15 seconds. Again, we're just looking to make it to where the soft peaks have formed so it floats on top of our drink. So let's take a look. Perfect. So you're going to take your coil out. And then you can either spoon or you can just pour it right on top depending on the consistency of your cream. But in our case, since we did it just right, we're just going to pour right out of here. And as you can see, it's not dissolving into the drink. It's just forming a perfect layer on top of the drink. All the way to the top. And then, so like I was talking about with the aromas, the reason the Irish coffee works so well is because with this cream top, you don't get any of the whiskey evaporating smell, which is super cool. But the other thing we like to do is to put some aroma back into it, because with a cocktail, a lot of what you're tasting is going to be from the aroma. So currently all you're smelling is cream, which is like not super reminiscent of the drink itself. So what we like to do is just take some freshly ground, finely ground coffee, and you just sprinkle it right on top. You're not going to taste the coffee like you would think. It's not like you're going to start just getting mouthfuls of the grinds. It just provides a nice little aroma for when you come up to take a drink. So now, you're all complete. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you can see the perfect layering between the cream and this. Again, if it starts seeping in, it's not the end of the world. The problem is just that the heat's going to go away because the cream is cold and the coffee's hot, and you're not really going to have a hot beverage anymore. All right, let's give it a little try. Absolutely delicious. So again, with this is a variation of what's called the flip, which is a cocktail style that's a fortified wine or spirit mixed with a rich ingredient and then rounded out with some sort of dairy product. So whether that's eggs, cream, milk, coconut cream, all that sort of thing. So for our case, the flip variation is made based on the Irish whiskey with the rich taste of coffee and simple syrup, and it's rounded out with the heavy cream, which makes it a super fun, awesome flip variation that's delicious. if you guys are trying to avoid dairy, a coconut cream is a great option. I think that's probably the best option if you want to avoid dairy. But overall, this is how you make this. It's delicious. Like I said, you can kind of have it any time of day, but for me, brunch or in the evenings is definitely ideal. So, does anybody have any questions, or do you want to let me know what you've been drinking at home?
What whiskey did you use?
So this is Powers whiskey. It's like I said, it's an Irish whiskey. This is just their gold label. It's their cheaper one, and it's super tasty, super good, well-rounded. It's got like a honey flavor to it, which I think goes really well in this exact cocktail. But we've made it before with, like I said, Jameson, Bushmill, Redbreast. All those taste really, really good. So,
Is the Irish coffee choice or Irish whiskey because it's an Irish coffee, or is it a flavor thing too?
it's a little bit of both. So traditionally, this is a drink that actually came from Ireland. So they take pride in the fact that they have Irish whiskey, the Irish coffee, and Guinness. That's kind of like the three staples of Irish beverages that have been brought to America that we all super enjoy. So it is like a traditional classic drink from Ireland, which is why Irish whiskey makes sense. That being said, it doesn't mean that another whiskey wouldn't taste good in this. It's just traditional to use an Irish whiskey. But yeah, Irish whiskey does have a very unique flavor. Has to be triple distilled, so there's some different flavors coming from that. And overall, all Irish whiskey has a similar-ish flavor to it, which helps just keep some consistency, whereas other whiskeys, you can get all sorts of different flavor profiles. So when I say Irish whiskey, whatever you pick up that's an Irish whiskey is going to taste great in this cocktail, whereas some different whiskeys might be a little off-putting in this, but would still be great. So, any other questions? Anything you guys want to...
Is there any other coffee cocktails that you like to make?
Yeah, so there's quite a few fun tiki cocktails actually that have coffee in them. There's one called the Bali High, which has pineapple juice, lemon, rum, and some coffee liqueur in it that's super tasty. We've actually done what's called a cafe colada at our rum bar across the street, Daydream Rum Bar. And that's like a pina colada, but with a little bit of cold brew in it, which surprisingly works super well together with coconut and all that stuff. I think probably the other most well-recognized flip variation with coffee in it would be the, oh no, I just lost the name. The White Russian. Yeah, people love that cocktail. But yeah, there's all sorts of options. And again, this isn't, if you want to pull out a certain particular flavor, you can pick single origin styles of coffee, but for us, we just thought the blend would taste best with this. But if you want to use a particular coffee to bring a certain flavor out, that's totally fine too.
Sick.
Cool.
We are going to do the second round of the latte art pours. Isaiah and James are pouring now. So get your A's and B's on the keyboard ready. We've got these coming in hot. How awesome was that Irish coffee tutorial? Isaac makes a cocktail like no other. He knows his stuff, so definitely take notes on that. You guys can't see who poured what. Alrighty, guys. So we got two gorgeous lattes over here. So we over here on this side we got latte A and we got latte B. Both are looking pretty gorgeous. So this one basically is going to be a tulip design. What the person that poured this did is they did a little sneaky thing where they poured this way, and then they flipped the cup around and poured into it this way, and they did a little tulip stack on there. It's it's called the gargoyle in some circles. And then we have this guy over here is a nice, beautiful rosetta with some extra little flirty hearts floating about. in there. So, okay, looks like people are starting to vote. We got some. Dang, you guys are deciding quick. Okay, cool. So we got an A, a B, an A. So that's 4 A's.
Another A on YouTube.
5 A's, 6 A's, 1 B. We're gonna hang out for about 15 more seconds. Another A. Oh, we got a B. So we got 2 B's. We got 7 A's. For those just joining, we are doing a throwdown. This is A, this is B, this is A, this is B. Vote on which one you like more. About 10 more seconds.
Another A.
Ooh, we got another A. So we're about 8 A's, 2 B's. Which one do you like, y'all? A or B? Five, 4, 3. Oh, we got another A. 2, 1. All right, guys. This is another sad day.
Did you think for 1 second about the contrast that this has compared to this? I was just talking about this earlier. I'm talking about the light foam versus the dark foam. That's a big plus. This was like, you're doing too much. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter now.
Our crowd's extra. They like that too much. They like it with a little extra on it.
Oh. Alright. Disappointed.
Bowser, the final boss, wins again. Sweet. So we've got some more stuff going. How far in are we? We still got quite a bit of time.
49 minutes.
If you guys have questions, keep them pouring in. There's a few more that we have. Someone asked something about Vietnamese coffee on the YouTube stream. And we do not keep sweetened condensed milk on hand. We haven't messed around with the Vietnamese coffee for our menu, but that would be something super fun to look into. So it might be something we look into trying. But you need a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Sweet. So we have not tried a Vietnamese coffee, unfortunately. But if you have a recipe you really like, something tried and true, we would love for you to send that over, and we can try that out. But yeah, I appreciate you throwing that our way. We don't have too much. Have you ever made any Vietnamese coffee, Zay?
No.
No. Yeah.
But I have had the Vietnamese coffee cake donut.
Ooh,
From
yes.
Bristol.
Yes, we do. We are carrying for however many days are left in the month of April. We have a really awesome in the cafe. We are still open daily. So if y'all are in Albuquerque and you're holed up and you're going a little crazy and these beautiful recipes that we taught you and the brew guides that are downloading just aren't hitting on like a Friday or a Saturday or Sunday or a Monday or any time, and you just need to get out the house and make sure that the earth still exists, we're open 7 to 6 every single day, making beautiful coffee. And part of what we're offering too is Bristol donuts. We got awesome local fresh pastries every day. And ooh, thank you. We have a really awesome Bristol donut. They do a few that they change around every month. And this one for the month of April is a Vietnamese coffee cake donut, and it's super dope. It's got a coffee cake crumble on top. But yeah, we haven't messed around with Vietnamese coffee.
Josh, what's the first thing you want to do when quarantine is over?
The first thing I want to do when quarantine is over? Man.
Safely.
I wanna hug all my friends and give them a big old smooch and cuddle with all of them.
What if your friends don't want that?
Then they can say no. What do you guys how are you guys, everybody faring through quarantine? Isn't this stream fun? I think we're gonna mess around with these a little bit more often. It'll be a little bit more fun when we're not quarantining as well, because we can have a few more of our staff. We can have a few more people on camera. But awesome, cool. Well, it looks like we are ready for our next little tutorial. Isaiah's gonna be doing a little walkthrough on some espresso. So You might be tired of them, but you can't get rid of them.
That's right. Cool. So, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know for a fact that this espresso is going to pull great. If it pulls great, I'm going to explain to you why it's great. But if it pulls bad, that's just life. It happens. Sometimes you got to roll with the punches. And I'll explain to you why it's bad, or at least not as good as it could be. I know some people have like home espresso machines, and they can be a little frustrating at times because sometimes they have a difficult time like holding temperatures. The steam pressure is a little challenging to work with, but a big part of it is like how fine you can grind your coffee at home. It definitely has its limits. Even if you have a good like burr grinder, you got the setup, it's still really difficult to get coffee to the fineness that you need for espresso. Because espresso basically requires a lot of energy to be considered espresso. So sometimes the term's a little convoluted in the sense that people think sometimes it's a kind of roast or blend or whatnot. But by the end of the day, it's essentially a brew method of coffee, right? It's really concentrated. Basically, you have 1 part coffee to 2 parts water, or 1 part coffee to 1.5 parts water. And so it's really concentrated, but the other aspect that makes espresso is high pressure. And sometimes the home machines can struggle with pressure. We got a Linea Mini. It's kind of a workhorse. It's been great for us. It is a little pricey, but it's somewhere in between a commercial and home espresso machine. It's not, for just everyone. We've been using it a lot at events, and it's worked super well for us. But at any rate, this is generally what a lot of home espresso machines look like. The basic setup, you got your group head, steam wand, portafilter that I locked into place. We're using 20 grams of ground coffee, and it's going to put out, you could have an espresso scale here, but we also have volumetric measurements here. So essentially, I'm going to get out my timer so we can see how long this espresso takes to pull, because that will dictate a good deal of like what it's going to taste like. So let's see here. So once you get started, it's going to start at a certain pressure and then ramp up. A lot of home machines will just go straight to the extraction pressure. This one does it a little slower, thankfully. And on a commercial machine, you can have even more control of like the water pressure. So let's go. We'll see how it pulls. Bear with me. Alright, so the first few drops pulled around 7 seconds or so. This actually might be an okay shot, but you can see that the stream is actually getting a little fat and shaky. That can be a bad sign. It could be passing through the coffee a little too quickly. That said, small home machines do have their limits, so you can't necessarily expect like a cafe kind of espresso all the time because the tools aren't always at your disposal at home. But you can still have like decently enjoyable, good espresso. Can I get a mug?
Okay.
I don't want to sip out of the glass. Oh, we got some grounds on there.
Oh.
Rip.
Party foul.
We'll have some cowboy espresso. Thank you. So, just real quick, I was going to show you. So, I think this shot pulled okay. I think it pulled a little quickly towards the end, but you have a good crema. Crema will start to break down after a while, but a good crema should hold up for at least a few minutes for you to sip it. Then you have the whole body of the espresso. We're going to pour it into our sipping glass. If you ever see somebody stirring the espresso, the reason for that is so you can make the whole like drink more homogeneous, because the distribution of coffee can fluctuate throughout the cup. So if you stir it, you can kind of like equalize it. So that's why we give you spoons with your espresso. Or we should. If we don't, ask us. Let's see how we did. It's actually quite good. I mean, I do think it still pulled a little quick. And the reason I think that is because with any coffee extraction, if you have a coffee that tastes a little too bright, a little too in your face with a kind of like, I call it unrewarding acidity, where it has the acids of like a fruit, but not the sweetness. So that means the water was passing through the espresso a little too quickly. So in the future, we would tighten up this grind. It would probably be a little better built espresso as well. The crema would probably be a little thicker and heavier. At the same time, espresso is really intense, so it can take a little bit to acquire a taste for it. It's kind of like for some people like the next step for coffee people. Some people start with espresso; those are scary people. But for a lot of people, once they kind of like learn a lot about brewing techniques, fundamentals of coffee, they start to dip their toes into espresso, and it can be a little daunting at first. And a big part of that is that espresso, by the end of the day, can be really challenging. Like, we have really great equipment from Synesso. Shout out to Synesso, Malkonig. We have great equipment, but even then it can be hard to consistently get really quality espresso. So that's a part of it, where you order an espresso and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Or sometimes you have so many bad ones that it's hard to tell what a good one even is. So by the end of the day, an espresso should be intense, it should be potent, but it shouldn't be overwhelming or abrasive. There should be sweetness there. You should be able to enjoy it. I don't think you should be able or have to suffer through any coffee, including espresso. So bad espresso, sometimes you really have to suffer through, and that's why people have it in some ways, because they can just down an ounce or an ounce and a half and get caffeinated. But ultimately, the ethos of what we want to do is for you to enjoy it. So ideally, this would be a little sweeter, pulled a little longer, but again, totally worth enjoying and sipping on if you like to read, Netflix, whatever. Just get your day started. But that's my walkthrough of espresso for you guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you have any questions about home espresso machines, anything like that, filtration, whatever comes to mind.
Someone's asking what our hours for today are.
7 to 6 daily at both locations. So Nob Hill and Uptown, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're doing like our full drink menu. So definitely drop in. We got Bristol donuts. We got witching flower pastries. We got off the wheaten path for you gluten-free folk. Shout out to the gluten-free folk. But thanks for having me. Hope you learned a thing or two about this guy. And next up,
we are gonna do another latte art edition, but we are going to pull in 2 baristas that we have working. We're gonna show you guys just real quick. So we are on location at one of our cafes, the Nob Hill Cafe. So right over here, we got lovely Jess and Josh that are serving people. They're in the middle of making a drink or two right now. Look at them with their masks on. They're killing it. Honestly, the baristas have been killing this whole thing during the whole lockdown, helping people make coffee in a safe, clean way. But yeah, we're going to pull them in real quick for a little latte art throwdown. Probably the last one of the stream. So give us just a second to get that all organized. And yeah, they'll be on the camera shortly.
So what's going on, America? What are you guys drinking? Nobody answered my question. It kind of bummed me out a little bit. I know everybody's drinking at home, so why aren't you telling me what you're drinking and how you're drinking it? Josh, what are you drinking at home? Yeah, what are you making later?
Water, made a whiskey sour.
You want to come hang out with me, Josh? Let's talk about cocktails.
Okay.
So this is not only our hair and makeup guy, but he's also our videographer
Hair's
and
down,
online guy.
Hair's down.
But Josh is actually one of the bartenders across the street at Nob Hill Bar and Grill and Daydream Rum Bar. He hops back and
W's in
forth.
the chat for Josh. W's in the chat for Josh.
Or snake emojis, whatever you
Or
guys,
snake
whatever you're
emojis.
feeling. But we do some virtual happy hours from time to time. I think our best one we've made so far is probably the Jungle Bird.
I'm gonna say Jungle Bird was a good one.
What's the Jungle Bird?
The Jungle Bird?
What is it?
Delicious. Just kidding. It's pineapple juice, demerara syrup. It's got some rum, And
what, sir?
Demerara.
What's Demerara, Josh?
It's just like a, just fancy sugar. It's just different from your normal white granulated processed sugar. And so you can find it in like those turbinado sugar packets, the sugar in the raw, very similar. And so like Isaac was saying earlier, you can make simple syrup at home. With the Demerara or turbinado sugar, you just double it. So twice as much sugar as water, and you get this really, really delicious, it adds a different unique flavor. Yeah. So and then you put some Campari and lime juice, shake that thing up, you got yourself a Jungle Bird. It is quite delightful. Let me tell
Josh, the
you.
ladies want to know, are you single?
No, they don't. Don't tell me these things. Don't exploit this live chat. Yes.
Yes.
Alright, right on.
All right.
Oh,
You guys ready?
Get ready to go.
Get in
the
here.
latte art throwdown is ready.
So Jess has been
Thanks
with
for
us
having
since
me.
day
I'm
one.
out.
About as OG as it can get, besides Isaiah, I think. Isaiah's, we were hanging out in his living room talking about Little Bear years ago. And then Jess joined on, and we haven't let go of her since. Josh is newer. Since we opened Disco, he's one of our newer baristas. So Josh, how long has Josh been with us, Josh?
What?
How long has Josh been with us?
6 months.
6 months?
7 months?
I can't hear you guys.
Yeah, 6 or 7 months.
6 or 7 months.
Josh?
So we got somebody who's been a barista for 6 or 7 months versus somebody who's been a barista for... Jess, how long have you been a barista for?
Like at Little Bear or in general?
Just in general.
I don't know, like 6 years.
6 years. We got a 6-year barista versus 6 months.
Where should I stand?
Wherever you want. This is Jessica. Wave to America, Jessica.
Hello, America.
This is Josh.
Hey, America.
Hi, America. All right, get it. Get it.
But don't show the people what you're pouring, because it has to be anonymous.
Oh, I see. I'm nervous. This is not very good at all. Anonymous, right? Thank God for that.
Thank God for that. Isaiah, you want to grab the phone?
What? Oh, yes, I do. Da, 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 da. Okay. We got here. Oh, that was scary. We got latte A. We got 2 tulips. Latte A, latte B. Which one just makes you want to grab a sustainable hay straw and drink it? A for this latte. B for this latte. Doing a latte art throwdown. Latte A, latte B. Vote in the chat. Let us know which one's better. Latte A or B. We got one for B. Got another for B. Another B. B's in the lead. Tie. Someone says tie. That's it. Another B. B is in the lead. If you want to save latte A, speak now or forever hold your peace. That's bad lighting. Oh, there it is. Let's get into that texture. Ooh. That's good though. There it is. There's some bubbles, but it's been sitting for a minute. It's okay. Alright. It looks like B takes the cake.
Nice.
That is barista Josh.
Thank you, America.
Great job. Beautiful lattes. Beautiful drinkable lattes. Cool. So, thanks for being with us so far. We appreciate it. I'm going to invite up James. He's our roaster at the shop and overall coffee genius. I love this guy, and we've been friends for a really long time, and we've been doing coffee for a similar amount of time.
I think there's like almost 18 years between us.
There-
No.
Well, if you
No.
add, I don't know, I have like 7.
Maybe close to.
I think I have 7. You have like 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't even always agree on coffee, which is okay, and that's
fine.
kind of part of it. So what we wanted to do today is like basically what I said is like demystify the term specialty coffee or third wave coffee or craft coffee. If you've heard any of those terms and you're like, what does that mean? Are these places just trying to feel better about themselves by selling things for more expensive? That thought has ever crossed your mind. We want to give you some insight into kind of what it means on like for us at least, and like how we identify with specialty coffee and the implications of it, because we really think it doesn't amount to any one single thing, but that it's a lot of things. So I guess right off the bat, going off of what we were saying is like, what kind of history do you have with coffee? Like what was your come up?
Yeah, I started in what we refer to as a second wave cafe, which is more geared towards fast service, more quantity than quality, super 20-ounce drinks, and that's what I was drinking, when I first got into coffee. And, over the years, my tastes have changed to kind of what we refer to as specialty or third wave coffee. You'll kind of hear those interchangeably in the industry. Yeah.
On a roaster level, what are the difference between those two for you as a roaster?
So typically when you go into a second wave cafe, you'll get a darker roast. When you look at the coffee beans, they're typically really oily and dark. Third wave coffee typically is light to medium roast. In the cup, what that translates to is second wave coffee. Typically, you'll get maybe ash or carbon. Sometimes if it's done really, really well, maybe some nuttiness, some caramel flavors. And light roast, you'll get more of the fruit forward notes. Depending on the coffee and region, you can still get that caramel or sweetness or nuttiness.
For sure.
Yeah.
So how would a third wave roast differ from that, or a specialty roast?
Oh, that's kind of what I was saying is third wave roast will be more of that fruit forward, lighter roast. Super, in my opinion, just far superior. And it does, if you've been drinking dark roast your entire life, it does take getting used to. Your first specialty coffee you might think is way too acidic. And if that's the case, let us know, because we typically try to keep something on hand that's a little not super fruit forward, just so we can kind of ease you into that transition rather than just going from a super dark roast to something that we do, which is light.
Totally, yeah. And I think that's worth saying is that if you're used to a certain kind of anything, could be coffee, could be something else, and then you try something that is pretty different, because coffees are acidic. And it's not like our favorite word to use because it puts a bad taste in people's mouths sometimes, or they associate it with something negative. But by the end of the day, there's lots of great things that have acids, like fruit and stuff. And so when we mention that like a coffee is like really bright is like a word we'll use, or fruit forward, juicy, that usually implies an acidity to it, but not a bad acidity, like an acidity that's balanced out with sweetness. So that's kind of like, that is what would differentiate us on like the roasting level. But I guess kind of like transitioning more so of like, we sell our 12-ounce bags for some, anywhere between 18, low 20s, and sometimes, and we sell, lattes for $4. So
right.
Sometimes people might get the wrong idea about that. So like, why is that? What would you say?
I think a big part of that is supply chain, paying farmers what they're worth. So we're paying a higher premium for the green coffee we get, and that directly impacts them. And quality of bean, specialty coffee is the very top tier. You have two types of coffee in circulation right now. There's commodity coffee, which I don't want to use name brands, but It's typically what you get in a can, really low quality coffee. And then you have specialty grade coffee, which is the top tier. And we at Little Bear try and even get the top tier of that top tier. There's that. It's all the attention to detail when it comes to roasting, brewing, ordering. We take a lot of care. We're the last, 2 steps in this super long process where, by the time we get coffee, there's already been so much hard work. Coffee plants take 3 years to start producing coffee.
Mhm.
So there's 3 years where the farmer is getting no income, on this risk. And obviously farmers sometimes plant other things to kind of supplement that. But for a large majority, it's a very high risk venture for them, and we want to be supportive of the farmer, and support them as much as we can.
Totally. And what ways? Because I want to touch on a lot of time. Like James and I will talk about taste, right? We really believe that the kind of coffee we buy and the way that we roast it is treating the product with the most amount of respect and integrity to show its individual characteristics. But beyond that, I think it does go beyond taste too, including like the ethics. So in what way would you say that specialty coffee has helped in that department, or what would you want to add?
I think as far as ethics, we have direct trade and fair trade. Those are two huge things where people started paying farmers what they're actually worth instead of pennies for that, and making farms more sustainable, trying to work towards that.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that this is actually an amazing fact, and I didn't say it yesterday because I don't know why, but I kicked myself once I forgot. But in a 16 ounce, this is a 12 ounce, but a 16 ounce bag is about the equivalent of a whole coffee plant, like a whole one, which grow 6 feet tall. So that is a really close equivalency to a bag of coffee. And if you think about just how much labor goes into it, that's kind of what we're really trying to refocus on. Is you can grab a bag kind of thoughtlessly, right? Just like you could grab anything thoughtlessly, but we want to put the focus on like James said, we're just a small part of this. And if you're buying bags, you're also a small part of that. But if you can reflect on everything that went into this, then we can kind of focus on that quality over quantity thing, and treating products with respect, and not just having coffee as part of your habitual routine just to get down and get to work, which is fine. We all do that. It's a good thing, and caffeine's a great side effect from coffee for a lot of people. And I think it's awesome. It helps me. I have the benefit of waking up early into a coffee shop, but at the same time, we want as specialty coffee roasters for you to enjoy it, and for it to not just be something you shoot down and then maybe get some afternoon and just a means to an end. We want you to actually be able to think about it, and we want it to help you and make you happy, honestly, because we get a lot of joy. It sounds kind of cheesy, but it's true. When you have a really good cup of coffee and you start your day with a really awesome cup of coffee, it means something. It is valuable for a lot of people. The demand of coffee has been going up for decades, and it's probably going to continue to go up. So that kind of leads me to my next point, which is the ethos of specialty coffee in the getting out of the fast food mindset. And so what kind of ways do you think we as specialty roasters want to show that to our customers?
Yeah, I think building relationships with our customers is a huge part of that, and taking the time to sit and explain, whether it be the tutorials we did today or sit down in our cafe. That's something I really miss is when customers come in and we can discuss coffee and kind of educate people.
Totally. Yeah, and the education part is huge for us. The things we do are a little goofy. We have fun with it, but like we want to help people learn, and like people are in a different place, and like we're like Albuquerque natives, so we're trying to be like to understand our community and how our personal community understands coffee, and then kind of like facilitate each individual from there, because like we're not trying to force anything down anyone's neck, but we do think we are offering something that a lot of people could enjoy.
We have a question coming in asking, which of your blends or single origins do you recommend for making cold brew at home?
That's a great question. Honestly, so the question was, what coffee do we recommend for cold brew at home? Our Costa Rica right now is really incredible. It's pretty delicate, so that might get lost a little bit in cold brew. So that or the Kenya.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And I like that you say Costa Rica, because I feel like we would always choose different
Yeah.
different coffees. But I think honestly, I associate Kenya with iced coffee or Kenya with cold brew, because like a lot of times they're like just juicy enough to like hit the spot when it's like hot. So my opinion is the Kenya, but they'd probably both be. I would say. See, I'm gonna push back on what you said.
That's fine. We disagree all the time.
I think if the Costa Rica, since it's a little lighter bodied and more delicate,
Sometimes that's great in a cold
but a
coffee.
cold brew probably wouldn't filter it in
Yeah.
the way that would maximize its complexity.
How about
Boom,
the,
I rest
how
my
about the
case.
Allsec? Is the Allsec good?
I'll stick with
Yeah,
Boston.
yeah, we do the Allsec pretty consistently in the cafe.
It's tried and true.
Yeah,
It really is a super versatile blend. Like we use it for everything.
Yeah.
And we're not just like doing that for the sake of it. It really does work for mostly everything.
right. Well, and that kind of goes.
Shout out to James.
That kind of goes back to like the misconception that espresso is a blend. Espresso is just a way of preparing coffee, and so you can use any coffee on espresso. You can use any coffee on pour over, cold brew. Yeah, any method you can use any coffee for, and dial in to a point where it tastes good.
And there's gonna be different strengths of different coffees, right? Like what I would enjoy in a coffee is clearly a little different than what James sometimes enjoys.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And so like that's why we would have different recommendations. But like if you're ever like interested in like a specific coffee at your like local roaster or whatever, you can just ask them like tell them what you like, I guess is what I'm saying, because then it's easier to choose. So if you're not into fruit forward coffees, like you can say that. If you're asking for something like more rounded out, a little more straightforward and sweet, then like those are words that you could use to like describe your coffee that you want. Because like by the end of the day, a big part of like what we want to do is also kind of like meet each individual where they are.
Right.
And so like I want to know what kind of coffee you normally like, because if you like a more traditional darker roast, I'm not probably gonna offer you the fruitiest coffee we have, even though I really like it. It's not always the best entryway for people to understand.
Yeah, and your taste changes over time. So
Totally.
You may come when you first start coming to Little Bear, you might really enjoy the dark roast or darker coffees from other cafes that you go to, and what we want to do is kind of take you in and foster that curiosity you have about coffee, and kind of help you grow and help us grow.
Totally. Yeah, that's another part of us, or like what we want to be as leaders in our cafes and stuff, of like we want to be students too. There's a lot to learn about coffee, and coffee's always coming up with new stuff, and there's new things happening all the time, and we want to be open to that. So like that's a big part of how we grow as a company, is to be like willing to learn stuff on our own, because we don't know everything. We have ways that are working for us and that we really enjoy, but we kind of hope that they change in the future, right? Like we can like reflect and look back and be like, wow, this is even better than it was before. And I think that's a big kind of part of our vision. The next kind of thing sort of tying into that is a lot of people associate specialty coffee, third wave coffee, with snobbery or pretentiousness or something like that, arrogance. And I kind of wanted to know, like, do you think that's a valid criticism? And if so, why do you think that has kind of come about, that
I think that
sentiment.
a majority of our industry for a long time had that struggle. There was a self-importance, and I think part of that comes along with realizing how special coffee is and wanting to convey that to people comes across as maybe rude or But I really encourage anyone who's had a bad experience, communicate that
Totally.
to the store that you go to, because we've had everyone has a bad day, and it has happened at Little Bear, and we never want to fall short of that. So if that has ever happened, we want to know about it. But to kind of loop back to the question, I think it's a self-importance thing that the industry is slowly getting over.
Totally.
And our mission statement is love people, use coffee. So no matter who walks into our doors, we want to just love on them. We want them to feel better when they leave than when they came in. I think that it is a valid criticism of the industry overall, but I believe that's changing.
Yeah, and we hope it is, and we want to be a part of that change too, truthfully.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. And anybody who has been into like a craft coffee shop, so to speak, and not wanting to go back or something like that, we'd encourage you to give it another shot, because it does. We at least get the impression that the industry is acknowledging that more and more and trying to improve that. And like that's really like how we built Little Bear, with like thinking that with that exact ethos of like we want the quality of our products to be really like, I guess, self-evident, so to speak, that the quality is there, but it's really the baseline, like it's embedded into what we believe, it's embedded into what we do. We care and we're trying and we want you to have a good experience. And then we can kind of pour our like thought and energy and all of that, emotional power into our community, the people that come in, the people that communicate with us, even local, vendors we work with, whatever the case may be. And tying that into like what makes specialty coffee is like, we mean the people all from day one to handing it off to you guys as the customer or consumer.
Absolutely.
So this process of people who are harvesting it, farmers, the people who are processing it, packaging it, delivering it, there can be anything from one of those steps that could mess up coffee, and in turn it doesn't even get to us, or it suffers, like somebody else suffers in some other way, and it's a lot of times the farmer, unfortunately.
Right.
Like for example, a big problem that not a lot of people were aware of, and this is improving as well, is water getting into green coffee during shipping.
Yeah, that leaf rust is still a huge issue.
Yeah.
That farms are completely wiped off. That's horrifying.
Totally.
Yeah. So.
Totally. And so we're thankful there are entities like the SCA who are putting a heavy emphasis on sustainability in coffee and trying to plan out and figure out how we can continue to consume coffee in a smart way, because it's a finite resource, right? And
Yeah.
by the end of the day, we want to make sure that all the people that we're dealing with, even if we don't directly meet them, but they're being treated fairly. And specialty coffee has actually, in some ways, I would like to preface with the fact that even specialty coffee has a ways to go, but at the same time, we're paying more for our coffee, right? Which means that everybody else in that chain, like we've been talking about, also gets paid more. And so like that's why you see those prices. That's why you might hear a barista give you advice with the best way to drink it. But it is important to kind of separate what might be like a barista actually being a jerk versus what might be a barista giving you some thoughtful advice. And it's important that we give that advice in a thoughtful way, right?
Right.
Because we can't expect people to be receptive if we are sounding like jerks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a great example of that is having coffee. There have been one or two coffees we've carried that if you put cream into would curdle the milk to the point where the coffee would be undrinkable. Does that mean you can't put cream in it? We won't stop you from doing that, but we may suggest, hey, this other coffee takes cream a lot better than this one does, and kind of explain to you why that is.
Yeah. So if we as baristas agree to be thoughtful and approachable and kind in our advice, then we just only ask that you as a customer, consumer, maybe be receptive to that advice. Not in the way that it's like, we're going to tell you what to do, but I always like to say that, like, I guess talking about our experience feels a little gloaty, but at the same time, like, coffee is a huge, huge, huge part of James and I's life, and a lot of other baristas and cafe managers and roasters, and so they do feel really passionate about it. We feel passionate about it, and we want you to have the kind of experience that we have with coffee, and so that's why we might chime in
and build you, especially if you're a new coffee drinker. We want you to enjoy your experience, and anytime advice is given, at least at Little Bear, it's given with good intent behind it, and not, hopefully never arrogance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least that's what we're going for.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah. Well, thanks for chatting, man. It was a good conversation. If anyone has any questions about anything at all throughout any of this, feel free to...
I know we missed a question earlier in the day with espresso.
Oh, okay.
It's water quality.
Water quality.
Yeah, so
Yes.
does water quality matter in espresso? And the answer is a hard yes.
Yeah.
Water quality matters across every brew method. And there's a lot of science behind it, but if you're at home, typically filtered water is okay. Bottled water is better. So just a quick.
We got a good question on YouTube that says, any tip for ordering or etiquette when ordering coffees to try to be true to what you guys were just talking about?
I think so. Here, my suggestion is to maybe first look at the menu and just try see what you know and don't know on the menu, right? Because I'll go into coffee shops and I don't know even everything on a lot of menus. And at that point, if you don't see anything that's jumping out that you might like, something like that, then I super encourage you, especially us at Little Bit, please ask us questions. Because the questions thing, we can always answer, and we're happy to answer it. I think for me, at least I speak for myself, the only difficult thing that can be hard is if there's a lot of assumptions already made. So I think just trying to understand the coffee shop, and then maybe being open to something new, but also just asking questions to the barista, assuming they want to help you. Hopefully whoever you're going to does want to help you, so we're assuming that.
Yeah, and I think I know I've had bad experiences in cafes, even ordering drinks that I was familiar with, and being met with hostility, and we're here to change that view of specialty coffee.
Totally.
that has kind of circulated.
Totally.
If someone's rude to you, it's not your fault, it's their fault.
Did somebody say that? Did you
No,
say
I'm
that?
saying that's
Oh.
me.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I think that's about what I'd say. But don't be afraid to ask questions. Questions are great. They help everyone. And even if a barista doesn't know, they could learn.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing too.
And we have a great policy at Little Bear that if you don't like something, if we serve you a drink that A, isn't what you were expecting, or B, doesn't taste right to you, bring it back to us and we'll make you either something completely different or try and remake the drink for you.
And we won't roll our eyes.
We shouldn't.
We won't.
Yeah.
But we always I think an important thing to communicate to the customer is just exactly that, is if you don't like it, bring it back. Takes the pressure off. We have a pretty good batting average, all things considered, but at the same time, people have brought things back, and
right, and we're more happy to remake it and know that you get something you enjoy, rather than you not wanting to say anything and kind of suffering through your drink. We never want that. We want you to feel comfortable to come up and talk to us.
for sure, 100%. Cool. Any more questions?
I think so.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having us. We had a lot of fun. We're going to plug the website again. We got retail bags that we're shipping out. We got our new Kenya, new Costa Rica. Both are delicious in their own right. Code Renegade. Code Renegade for 20% off or something. 20% off. Yeah. Cool. So check out our website. We have tutorials up there. They're a little, more entertaining. So you can check them out. Hopefully they help you, but we're glad to have been here for you guys.
Yeah, and make sure to message us any questions after we.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, we're always happy to answer those.
100%. Thanks, guys.
You're Renegade.